Welcome to the Vertical Go-to-Market Podcast, where you'll discover new opportunities to grow your business from 7 figures to 8 from the world's most successful B2B SaaS and agency owners and executives. I'm your host, Corey Quinn. Today, I'm joined by Dave Hanson. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, Corey. I appreciate it.
I'm super excited for the conversation that we're about to have. But first, would you mind introducing yourself to those listeners who may not be familiar with you and your background?
Yeah, of course. Happy to. I'm currently the head of, I'm the president of Client Tether. We're a sales automation CRM platform that about 4.5 years ago went vertical. So excited to be on the show and kind of talk a little bit about the journey. But my background has been in sales. My first sales job was I was self-employed at age 5, snuck out of the house and was trying to earn money for baseball cards. But it's been, it's a long story. Maybe we revisit that later. It's pretty funny. But I started into that world and kind of stayed, software, ed tech, translation services. I've led a lot of organizations. I've started companies. And so I've just been in this world of business for a long time. I'm a passionate baseball guy, just retired as a high school baseball coach after my last season, last spring. I don't know how I squeezed that in with running a company, but you do what you got to do. But I love that kind of stuff. Dad of 4 kids, been married 20 years in a couple of months. So just life is treating me very well.
Wow, Corey. What a full life. Could you share a little bit more about what Client Tether does today and who do you serve?
Yeah, of course. So Client Tether is there are lots of CRMs out there, right? But we're a CRM that has sales automation, omni-channel communication built into it. And it was designed specifically for service-oriented industries. We found there are a lot of organizations that are CRMs that are built for kind of the big box pharma, high-tech companies. They're great. I've been an admin of some of them, Salesforce, Dynamics, you name it. I've even worked in Goldmine, right? So there are a lot of good CRMs. The problem is they have overcomplicated data structures and their sales automation is really poor. In the home service space, there are a lot of home service tools that try to be all-in-ones, but they're really good at, quoting and operations management, and they're terrible at sales. And so we built a tool that's actually phenomenal at automating the sales process. And it's also designed for multi-unit businesses, so dealerships and franchise systems, and that's kind of our bread and butter. And when we talk about verticalizing, that's really how we identified what we should do, because it was what we were absolutely hands down the best at. So we just focused on that.
For context for the listeners, could you share, or what can you share about the size of Client Tether, maybe the number of customers or employees, revenue, whatever you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, sure. It's a private company. We don't share tons of detail about that, but as an organization, we're a couple $1 million of recurring revenue now. We're still growing, but compared to where we were, 4 years ago, we've skyrocketed. Kind of hit an inflection point. About 11 employees, 12 soon, and about 1,500 business entities running their businesses off of our platform.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. We'll dig into that a little bit more as well. And then one more sort of contextual question is, what is your, can you tell us about your role there as the president? What are you responsible for? What do you do? What do you focus on?
Yeah, thankfully, the list of responsibilities is shrinking as we grow a little bit. You guys all can probably empathize with that. I have one hat on my head, but 20 that I wear emotionally a lot. But primarily in charge of now sales and marketing, and a lot of strategy. Before it also was HR and all sorts of other things. But we've fortunately got people that are taking care of a lot of that stuff now.
So let's talk about the verticalization of your business. Maybe take us through the time maybe when you were coming on. At that point, had Client Tether really focused the business on a specific vertical, or was it more multi-vertical at that time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I think we had the same conundrum every business has that creates a valuable product, right? That, especially in the CRM space, everyone needs it, right? Everyone needs sales automation tools. So, when I first joined, and that was the project to tackle, which was to figure out where is our best product market fit. And the problem is everybody wanted it. Chiropractors and dentist offices and home service companies and anybody, colleges, people wanted to use the platform because they saw the power of the sales automation. But so we really didn't have a focus. It was like what most people do. Oh, you want to give us money? Sweet, we'll take it. We'll take it. Which, as you probably are going to drive us toward, it created a whole host of challenges that really stymied our growth.
Could you share some of those challenges that led you to ultimately decide that you need to make more of a decision to focus?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I share that because I know anyone who's listening that's running a business, you're probably hitting the same wall. So the challenges are that the support process, the implementation, that has to be very different. If I'm working with, let's say, a college that's recruiting students to come, actually they're enrollment advisors. I can't call them recruiters, but they need that. They have a very different set of needs and different set of skills, and also different IT infrastructure that you've got to support. If I'm working with a doctor's office, that's a small, single physician practice or a chiropractor, well, they've got different considerations. Let's say HIPAA that you've got to make sure you're paying attention to. There are a lot of different things. Every vertical has a different set of technology requirements, a different set of lead sources that are coming into the platform. And as I started to evaluate like how that was impacting the company, it became pretty obvious that it's time to stop trying to be everything to everyone, because our dev efforts were spread so thin. We were not getting very deep into what I felt were priorities, what we all as an executive team felt were our priorities, which was, developing the platform, getting really good at certain things, and just didn't have the time because we were spread so thin, doing one-off requests to try to make it work in other spaces.
What was the business impact to being spread so thin over time? Like, how did that impact the company?
I won't share the details, but the revenue is not where it should have been after 4 years of being in business. And it also impacted the team. So the development team was stressed to the max, and they felt like they were not getting anywhere because they really weren't, because they were really just kind of taking one-off requests as they came in rather than having a structured roadmap and a process to build sprints and strategy and deploy strategically to drive additional value and revenue through the dev. So those were some of the impacts to us, and just not being able to support the platform like we wanted to. Every single account had a totally different set of needs and support questions and problems and technology infrastructures, which that makes it very difficult to support a platform.
That makes a ton of sense. It seems like at that time we have to focus on one thing. Why did you guys choose franchise?
Yeah, so we chose, and even in franchise, we a specific vertical, right, or a specific use case. So inside of franchising, and in fact, I'll share a little of a metamorphosis of this too. We're extremely good in home services. So we've got proposal platforms and payment processing, QuickBooks Online, so all sorts of different tools that help a whole, let's say a painting company or a painting franchise, top to bottom, run the business. Even things like royalty reporting, which are specific to franchising, but very important. So we decided on that because nobody does it. So all the big box CRMs, any of the home service tools, they're good, but the problem is the data architecture is broken. So they actually can't even if you spend, I've had people tell me they've spent 7 figures, heavy 6 figures trying to make a tool like Salesforce work in franchising. You can sort of cobble it together. And then you spend that kind of money, you have to have a full-time admin to try to, push buttons and constantly tweak things to make sure it's working properly. If somebody sneezes on the back end, the whole thing blows up and you have data flowing into the wrong accounts and you're breaking contracts. Like, it's scary what people are doing with those tools because they think it's the best. But it's the best for pharma sales. It's the best for tech sales. But we realized that we were beating people. Like, we've dislodged Salesforce, HubSpot. Like, if you look at the entrepreneur rankings, we outrank both of them. Actually, no, HubSpot might outrank us, but we have a lot of people that we transition away from HubSpot or Confusionsoft, like these big CRMs everybody knows, because they're not a fit. And they're really causing frustration. They're difficult to use. The data architecture is messed up, where if I'm a home service company, a lead is a contact, it is an account, and it is an opportunity. And those other CRMs, those are 4 different data tables and 4 different tabs. And a home service pro is like, I just want to go clean a carpet. I don't want to spend 30 minutes preparing to clean a carpet by clicking buttons and going to different tabs and flipping switches. And that's what they get, kind of UI soup, which is really difficult to run a service-oriented business in.
That makes perfect sense given my familiarity with that market as well. So it seems like you were able to uncover a very clear client or customer or market problem in this kind of UI soup. They wanted more simplicity, straightforward platform, but still built for home services. You also had a founder, Conrad, who had a background in home services and in franchising, and those kind of stars aligned and said, well, we have all this in-house knowledge and experience. We might as well focus on franchise. Is that kind of paraphrasing, but does that capture it?
Oh yeah, and also market fit. Like we had clients, like our best clients were in that space. Our lowest maintenance clients, we had clients that had 70 locations deployed with our software, and they were calling us with much less frequency than the single chiropractic office we worked with because of product market fit. And so, yeah, that was another indicator. Hey, we got to shift here and just focus on where we've got the most revenue opportunity, the best differentiator. Because there are a whole bunch of tools that can do what we do, maybe in a specific vertical, and they don't need the multi-unit data support structure. That's fine. Then they should use those tools.
How did you transition the company from maybe a generalist to a specialist in the franchise industry? For instance, did you just fire all your non-franchise clients, or how did you approach that transition?
No. One of our core values is to really partner with our clients and make sure we help them succeed. So only in a couple of rare instances have we ever had that conversation where we said, look, we're not a great fit. You need something we're not willing to do. So I will recommend 3 other platforms you ought to give a look at. Try this one, and this one. I'll introduce you to my friend who's the best HubSpot integrator in the Rocky Mountain area. Like, have a conversation, right? So, but even if we were to say farewell, it's usually taking them out of our hand and putting them in someone else's. But it was more of an issue of marketing focus and sales effort and design and development. That we didn't talk about that before, but when you're trying to sell to everybody, your marketing budgets are a disaster. Your PPC and your SEO is a nightmare because you're not really focused. So your poor marketing team, if you've got one, if you're big enough, they're a little schizophrenic because they feel like they're trying to write content all over the board. So that was really helpful for us being small. We didn't have to worry about 7,000 keywords. We focused on a dozen, 20, 30, 40, like specific words that now really aligned with what we were doing. Our PPC got very narrowed and focused. Our calendar of events we went to, it became obvious where we should spend our event dollars and budgets there. Our travel became less crazy, or at least the requirement for travel became less crazy because we weren't going to the big CRM shows. We didn't care. In fact, if you call me and you want to use my CRM and you're not a target client, I will probably disqualify you on the call honestly and kindly, and then point you in the right direction. So it really helped us a lot, even in the sales flow.
How did you begin to enter into the franchise market, given this decision, the strategic decision to focus on franchise? How did you begin to build relationships, build momentum within franchise?
That's a great question. Well, I also do. I've been a sales consultant for many years as well. The advice I would give people, and I took my own advice, is talk to my clients. We had ideal clients, so I said, "Hey, where are you guys going for information? What are your watering holes? What are the events we should be going to?" And just kind of listen to them. We built strategic partnerships in the industry with fantastic service providers in marketing and finance and all sorts of other things. That attorneys, people that said, "Hey, you guys are the right fit for this space. I'm going to refer all my clients to you because I want them to succeed." And I wrote their contracts. And why do I care about CRM? Because they need something to enforce the rules of their franchise, and something that's actually designed for them that won't bankrupt them. So so that was strategic partnerships was key, but then listening to the market and finding out where we belonged, where are the right events to go to, where should we spend our money, and that helped a lot.
How has becoming a franchise-focused software business really helped your business's ability to grow?
Yeah, it's scale. All those things that we just talked about, what it does is it isolates specific needs. And so even on the sales process, like our sales group, the way that we approach the market, our process, we use our own tools. So we create scale because we have automation that's really easy to deploy. But it made it a lot easier I didn't need to have 37 people trying to do one thing to try to capture the market. We could get very specific and generate specific leads. We knew which people to partner with because we knew that they were the best in the industry. So, and then also we knew that the events to go to. So we spent our time and money at these events and didn't have to go to everything else. So being focused on the vertical made it very easy for us to start to penetrate. And so we started showing up to the conferences. Like the first real event that we went to after making that decision was IFA. The big convention. It's actually in like a week and a half. So, and not from this recording date, not from the posting date of the podcast, but it's the show where kind of everyone shows up. Not everyone, but a lot of people. So that was where we decided, hey, we're going to double down here, make sure we have a presence. And frankly, the first time I went, I was a bit of a rookie. Conrad, he knows the industry's been doing it for 27 years or something, but I had to go and talk to everyone that I could and listen and learn and figure out how they operated, what their needs were. So it was also a really good experience for me just to shut up and listen for a little while and make good contacts that way.
I'm curious, did you have any direct experience with franchising prior to this role?
Every now and then I'd go buy a burger at a franchise or, actually I didn't know a darn thing other than what I'd learned from Conrad and just being friends, like hearing his experience. I understood the basics about the model, but I'll share a funny anecdote with you. We've added a little bit more focus to the platform, even within franchising, because I lost my ignorance in large respect to the franchising industry and how it worked. So, I didn't have any clue before.
Would you say that franchising has an insider's language that people who are not in franchising don't use?
Oh, yeah. Do you speak any other languages, Corey? Or
Yeah.
I speak Spanish. So even though I'm fluent, people that I can carry on a good conversation for a while, but people can always hear the flags of, oh, that's a gringo. Like you use different constructs, you describe things differently. There's specific jargon that they use, these and zors and stuff like that. But the way you talk about things, like I can hear a phony in a second now that I'm well versed in the industry, because I see, oh, they have no idea how that works. Like you can just kind of tell the way people talk. So 100%. And I think every industry is that way. The translation localization industry is that way. You can spot a fake pretty fast when you've been in it for a while. Ed tech, learning and development, they're all the same. High tech, you can easily spot a fake because they have no idea what's going on.
How important is it for Client Tether or a business that is trying to focus on a vertical to be able to authentically speak that insider language?
Oh, 100%. It's so important. You've got, and it's because people have to trust you. Like trust, I'm going to write a book on this, but trust is the commodity of the selling process, right? They have to believe, one, you understand them and what their needs are. And if you can't use the right terminology and get on the same page with me about that, then I don't really trust you. I'm going to hold back and I'm not going to buy. It doesn't matter what your price is or how shiny the object is. I'm just not going to do it. So I think it's critical, mission critical for the marketing team and the sales team to be very well aligned around industry terminology.
Now that you're focused on franchise and have been for a while, how do you attract new franchise clients?
Well, we use our CRM that we own. So so we have target accounts that we want to work with that are ideal, but we keep tabs of them inside of the platform. They have accounts. We can see who's got accounts, the types of businesses. It's all within our platform. An interesting anecdote, though, I want to share with you, Corey, is about a year into this verticalizing of our business. I had somebody reach out to me, and said, "Hey, Dave, I've been seeing your content on LinkedIn. Can I use this tool to sell franchises on the franchise development side of things?" And I said, "That's an interesting question. How does that work?" And so this lady, Janice, she's awesome, Janice Charles. So hopefully she listens because I want to give her some love. So she said, well, this is how it works. And she walked me through her process. She'd been doing it for 20 years. So she was an expert. And I said, oh, well, we already have all those tools in one place. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, we do this and this and this and this. And here's our vertical pipeline. We can easily adapt this, that. I don't even have to code anything. Our platform does it. And she's like, show me. So I showed her and she's like, oh crap. I've got 5 tools trying to do what you guys do. And how much is it? She's like, what? You guys are undercharging. I'm like, I don't care. That's the price. So do you want it? And it was really a fun exchange. And she gave us great feedback about ways that she used the system. And that opened up a door for us within the franchising space. That's our fastest growing vertical now, 3 years later. I probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 referrals a week that come through sometimes from people saying, hey, just work with Dave. Just work with Client Tether. They're the best at franchise development and sales. Whether they're brokers or franchise organizations. We got a large fast food organization coming to us that heard about us from somebody. Like it's this word of mouth is starting to spread now, and that's an area we're really doing great. Is in franchise development that came about from a random conversation from a LinkedIn post.
Isn't it interesting the sort of the side and unintended benefits that happen when you specialize?
100%. Yeah, right. You get exposed. You're splashing around in the pool with all these people, and eventually they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, I see you now, and now I see that I've been missing out." But if you're not in the pool, I'm making a little bit of noise. No one's ever going to know.
What type of marketing do you do for Client Tether? You mentioned you go to conferences and associations. I want to dig into that in a minute, but do you do typical inbound marketing, outbound marketing, any type of campaigns to drive leads?
Yeah, well, here's the trick. When you get into tight niches, sometimes your traditional marketing strategies don't work as well. So I've been in other industries. So localization, for example, is very easy. And I help them actually for verticalize as well. It's another story for another day probably. But there are 400 ways you can translate or different types of projects. But we help them really start to narrow their focus on learning and development content. And then that helped to completely change the nature of the company. With Client Tether, but even there, PPC worked okay, right? Your traditional marketing worked okay. In our case, we found that Google PPC was pretty much a waste of money because a lot of the key terms we were using to try to hit our target market, they were generic enough that they were attracting all sorts of folks. And I was like, I don't want an elevator sales company using my platform necessarily. You're not a fit. Like I'm not trying to attract you. But there wasn't an easy way to really segregate the terms enough. We still have kind of a very maintenance level of pay-per-click, but it's almost inert. There were a couple of specific vertical channels we found that worked very well. Referral partnerships has worked best for us. I almost hate to say that, but if you want to replicate, you can in this industry. I don't mind if my competitors listen in. They should probably take note because it works very well. But that's probably the best in industry shows referral, like asking for referrals from our clients. Usually when you talk, it's a pretty tight group of people. And so you often don't even have to ask them. When you fix their problems brilliantly, they want to tell people about it because they're problems that are pretty ubiquitous.
How big is the addressable market for Client Tether, round numbers, as far as the number of businesses that you would love to have on your platform?
Oh, man. So, well, the addressable market in this vertical we're focused on right now.
Correct.
You've got about 5,500 franchise businesses out there, give or take. Some of them would only be franchise development clients for us. Like we don't do quick serve. There's no point in having a CRM if you just need a point of sale. So, but they're probably, I don't know, a third of that number are home service, personal care, pet care, elderly care type service concepts, and they could all desperately use us. And some of those have 500 units. In the United States. So it's a little bit misleading to think, 5,000, that's a pretty small market, but really, that represents hundreds of thousands of locations that could be on our platform.
Yeah.
So it's a fairly decent market.
Yeah, no, I think that supports the comment you made, which is that traditional inbound and outbound, specifically inbound marketing isn't the best weapon I would consider for trying to make an impact in this market.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but I want to add a caveat on that because that's for us in this particular industry. What makes it difficult too is, traditional list development organizations, Lead 411, Zoom Info, groups like that. There is no way in any of those platforms, Seamless AI, you can't filter down to franchise folks at all. And so it's just not a filter that any of them have. And so for us, they were all useless. So your traditional outbound emailing, I'm not saying those don't work. I'm saying for me in our industry, that didn't work. So, but we tried it twice because I was like, that didn't work, but it should. I know it can work because in other industries it does, but for us it did not. But that was because there was a limit of our ability to gather proper data. Working in the industry for a while now, we have great lookalike audiences because we have great client lists and lots of folks we've reached out to and have valid contact information. So that helps a lot when you're doing your marketing, but you have to get that information first and really know your market first, or else you can't even build a decent lookalike audience because they're not homogenous. You need to create a homogenous group to do that.
So in those situations where you're unable to sort of buy off the shelf a perfect set of leads or contact information, what did you do in that situation to build the list?
Events. We knew which events they were going to be at. So it's about finding the watering holes, right? You have to know where are they going to get their information digitally or physically, or who do they listen to, or their podcasts? Are they listening to Corey Quinn's podcast? And if so, can I be a guest there, right? Like you have to find the channels that they're listening to, then you have to get in those channels. And so we went to events to start. And at the events, the crazy thing is a lot of folks, when you go to events, they sit behind a table. They put like, hey, we're giving away an iPad, like on some card. And they're like, yay, we're the best. It's a scooter. And then they sit there and wait for people to come to them. That's not how you succeed at any trade show or event. And then when there's that obvious part where everyone's in the classrooms, the breakouts, and then all the vendors are standing around, everybody sits down and gets on their phone and starts answering emails. I don't. I went around and met every single person because I wanted to meet, listen to their business and find out where there were integration points. And that some of our best partners have come from me chatting with some stranger on an escalator at a conference, or me walking around and meeting them and genuinely being interested in hearing what they have to offer. Because when you're really trying to build up expertise in an industry, one of the best things you can do is when you talk to someone who's not a good fit, walk them to someone who is. And so when I talk to people, clients or otherwise, I'll sometimes end up introducing them to 2 or 3 different experts in marketing or in technology management or something else. And I want to know who the experts actually are so I can have a good rapport with them because they'll also move. They'll change jobs in 2 or 3 years, and then they'll say, I need to talk to Dave because I need that sales automation platform stat. And they've left a good impression because I introduced them to somebody who could help them at that time.
How important is it for Client Tether to be associated with IFA, in this case for franchise, which is the big association, to go to the conferences? How important is that for your business development?
It's important. A lot of people want to put a lot more value on if you're not there, nobody knows you exist. That's not necessarily true once you've got a foothold in the industry. But if I didn't show up, I'd have a lot of people calling me and texting me saying, hey, everything okay? Where's Client Tether? So there's a little bit of value to the presence play, but it's really important because that's where everybody is. And the energy it requires to get access to the people. Like I bumped into, funny story, like I was new and ignorant. My first show, I literally bumped into a guy who's like the grandfather of the franchising industry. He's like super influential, really nice guy, lovely family. Like I really like, he and his wife are awesome, the Fishman PR. I bumped into him walking to the bathroom in this bar where I was hanging out with some people before the show started the next day. And I was like, oh, so sorry. And he goes, yes, no worries. Nice to meet you, Brad Fishman. And he leans back because he knows he's who he is and I didn't. And I was like, oh, nice to meet you. Oh, and I'd met his son at an event right before this one. I was like, oh, you're Zach's dad. And he was like, what? What the hell? Zach's dad. And he walked off. And I was like, oh no, like I've just pissed this guy off. His wife comes over at later, Sherry, and she's crying, laughing, and she gives me a hug. And she's like, he's still over there. Like his whole world just came crumbling down. They're friends now. Like it's really funny. But if you tried to call Brad or Sherry Fishman to get an appointment to try to tell them about how awesome your services were, they're so freaking busy. They're nice people. They don't have time for that stuff. But I bumped into him and then gave his wife a hug and got to know the family at this bar at an event. Like that's priceless stuff. And you can't undervalue that. And that's what you've got to do is find out, who are the players in the industry and figure out Jordan Wilson, for example, Jordan real well. Mm-hmm. Great guy, really influential. And, I met him at the same event. And then later on, Gabriella Ferrara and the team and have bumped into them at all the events. But you start to build kind of a fraternity of people who know what they're talking about when you do that. So even suppliers will refer you to their clients because they know you can solve their problems, and it starts to create a real web of value in an ecosystem where you really want to have influence.
So it's fair to say that it's much more difficult to build that network and build those relationships if you're not going to these conferences and having these shared experiences.
Oh, you're going to have to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on marketing to build brand and awareness, on cold call dialers. And the reality is a lot of people don't want to talk to someone on the phone right now. And they don't want to answer their email. Everyone's sending email, right? That's such an overplayed marketing process. It's important. It's important to do. It's an also ran idea, but you really want to get to the right person. You're going to do it at these events a lot faster with a lot less expense, especially when you're small. I don't have time to fly to Atlanta and then DC and then Chicago and sit down with one person at a time. I'd rather bump into them at the event and build a real relationship and then have context to call them afterward. It just accelerates the whole sales process.
Some people call word of mouth the holy grail of marketing. How do you define word of mouth?
Well, that's like a softball question. I wrote my master's thesis about this. So, better be a good freaking answer now, right? The word of mouth is I think it comes in a couple of channels, but it's really when you're having a conversation with somebody, either physically or even digitally, and somebody says that they trust because you're in their inner circle, they say, look, you have that problem. You should look at this solution. That happens for us a lot in social media. It also happens a lot in person, or over Zoom or over phone calls, right? So building the trust with the influencers in the industry, that's really how you build scalable word of mouth marketing, is find the influencers who align with your services and then make sure that they understand who you are. They get to know you. They trust you, and there's mutual value in them referring their clients to you. That's one channel. Another one is just having clients who love you, and you have to kind of prime the pump with them. You have to let them know, hey, people that work with us, they like to tell people how much they how much they love working with us. How did you hear about us? That's right, Bob told you about us. So if we give you great experience, don't hesitate to tell people about us. We can help solve their problems too. And now you mobilize your love group, right? Your customers should love you. If you're not doing that, that's step one. You will not build a word of mouth program that's successful if you're not giving people an experience that is unforgettable in a good way. Your negative word of mouth, if you give them an unforgettable experience in a bad way, will be much more powerful than your positive word of mouth. So that's key. You got to deliver an incredible experience, and then people tend to talk about it. And then giving them cues so that they remember to do it. We use our own system to remind people and nurture them, ask them for referrals here and there. And as we do that, often, a month or two later, we'll get a referral because they thought, oh yeah, I should introduce Steve to Dave.
What role does word of mouth play in your current ability to grow? Does it generate majority of leads, some revenue, a lot of the revenue? Like, how important is it for you today?
Strategic business partnerships have driven a lot of revenue to us. I would say it's key. It's key. It's probably the best clients that we've gotten. Most of them have come from referrals, and the fastest sales cycles that we have come through referrals. The least maintenance clients have come to us from referrals. So I think that's a key channel that I think we've done a good job developing here, and it's critical for our success. I would say at least the majority, probably just a little over 50% or more of our leads come from referral sources now.
That's fantastic. Truly fantastic. We've been talking a lot about the positives of verticalizing. What are some negatives? Okay,
I'll tell you one. We were looking at maybe getting some growth capitals. We started to hit an inflection point. We said, hey, this is a great opportunity. Let's go and let's have somebody capitalize us. We have a very clean cap table, so let's grow this baby. And I found, because we had verticalized, that a lot of the folks said, your SAM's off, your TAM's off, your total addressable market, there's no way that you guys can turn out the type of revenue and the returns that we're hoping for. And we said, you're wrong. You don't see the market the same way we do. But they're like, we're investors. Trust us. So we said, fine, screw you guys. We'll just become profitable and never have to worry about you again, which is what we did. But it did actually limit our ability to go get capital by getting very, very focused in this particular vertical. So I'd say it's one of the only negatives that I could really say. If you pick the wrong one, though, let's say you picked the wrong one, or as an example, let's say you picked a vertical that's going to start to die off as the economy takes a little bit of a turn. So something like, let's say, like a bougie personal treatment type thing. All that stuff's going to start to slide a little bit. Or let's say you pick a vertical like HR. Like learning and development, internal. Oh, this is a great one. Internal promotional or reward systems. What's the first thing that gets cut as soon as the economy takes a slap? That. So if you're focused on that particular vertical and you see a bit of tough headwinds, you're going to have a bumpy road for a little while. But don't be afraid, because you can earn market share. That's what people forget. Even though it's a tough vertical, it might get impacted by a downturn in the economy. Your competitors are going to stop investing. So even so, it's still great. You keep investing, you keep marketing, you keep going to events. And when you get out of the headwinds, you're going to have eaten up 3 times the market share you could have in a good economy. So it's still good. It's just it could be tough.
I love that contrarian perspective. That's awesome, Dave. Was there any point along the way where you thought verticalizing was not the right choice for the business?
No, I didn't. After, like, it was clear we needed to, and then after we did, the clear rewards were coming through. So we picked well, and truly, following Jim Collins, like the advice, what are we better than everybody else in the world? As long as you're following his advice on that particular decision as you're verticalizing, I don't think you'll regret it. If you do regret it, you got to check your strategy and make sure that you're actually truly verticalizing as you committed. Because a lot of people, they'll say we're verticalizing, but then they're like, well, we'll keep taking that and this and that. So I think because we were pretty disciplined, it's really been a great benefit to us.
What would you say to someone who's maybe listening to us right now, who is in a business that has maybe flatlined, is struggling with keeping customers happy, keeping them retained, their cost per acquisition is really high, maybe because their marketing is very generalized. What would be your advice to them regarding verticalizing the business?
The first thing I would say is you need to call my friend Corey Quinn, because he's an expert at this. So talk to the man who knows this stuff. And then the second thing I would say would be, who is your best customer? Like, who is your lowest maintenance, highest revenue, highest margin customer? Show me the top 10. What's similar about these 10 people? And sometimes you just have to let the numbers speak for themselves. Now, they might not all be in the same industry, but you're going to notice a trend. And that's what you have to find is the pattern. So if you see the pattern, you say, it's funny. They're not all the same, but they all have the same need that we solved. Like, what's that? Well, we solved this need. Okay. Now, where can you find a group of people who have that need very consistently? Oh, well, these 2 or 3 places. Beautiful. That maybe you didn't verticalize in one specific super tight niche like I did and we did. That's fine. But you can verticalize around a specific target of pain points that you can address in a market. So maybe you don't go after just chiropractors. You go after chiropractics and dentists and physicians, because it's a terrible example, but you know what I'm trying to get at here,
yeah.
Because they all have the same need. They need to engage with their patients.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So in other words, you're focusing your business around being the best in the world at solving a specific problem.
Right.
For a specific audience.
Yeah.
Last question, Dave. What is your motivation? Man.
Well, I'm still fairly young. My motivation is I really want to build this organization, the company. I want to sell. I mean, I'm a sales consultant, right? Like at heart, and every day I'm fixing people's problems, like in a massive way. I mean, across 120 locations, I'm fixing people's problems and systematizing things that are helping Joe Blow, terrible operator, truly succeed at his business and pay his bills on his own, be his own boss successfully. Like it's truly rewarding to see the outcomes of what I get to do here in a way and I don't mean that to sound chintzy or like that wasn't rehearsed, but like I really love what I do. It's like I was born to help people fix their crap when it comes to businesses and sales strategies. So I just happen to be in a position where I do it for a living. So I'm really enjoying what we do and seeing the company grow, knowing the number of people that we employ that are all paying their bills, because the company's succeeding. Like that sort of stuff keeps me very happy with what I'm doing.
That's fantastic. Dave, this has been so much fun. I think it's been a ton of value for me as being on the other side of the microphone here, as well as I'm sure for our listeners as well. Thank you so much for joining, Dave.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Corey.
All right, folks, that's it for today. I'm Corey Quinn, and I hope you join me next time for the Vertical Go-to-Market podcast. Please hit subscribe, and if you enjoyed the show and received some value from it, I would love it if you would give me and this show a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next time.